Okay.
Welcome to another episode of the Essentialists. Good people, thank you for joining us. This is His Majesty King Levi and his humble
Morning.
sidekick, Coach Michael, talking quality stuff, hopefully filling your cognitive space with good nutrition for the thought. So, as promised, today we are talking like we continued our previous session and we stopped on the Q&A. We got to the gloves and belts. Why are they? How to use them? What they are for, etc. So this is the first question that we are continuing. And please, we are all ears.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why
Okay.
break a good habit?
Yeah. So we were going to finish the conversation on two common questions that I get because of the videos that I post. Are why am I wearing a belt, or what kind of belt is it, or how often do I wear a belt? And then the gloves. They seem to generate quite a few comments or DMs. And I guess first the belt, a kettlebell belt. Mine is from Arnzy. Arnzany, is that how he says his name?
Arseny Zhernakov. Yes, the
Yeah, not even
Laboratory of
close.
Champions.
Yes, Lab of Champions. Yeah. So I reached out to him on Instagram, Lab of Champions, and I had him make me a belt for my frame. And the kettlebell belt is there to support your rack position, not for bracing. That's the big difference. Like, you just aren't going to, go down to Shields or Dick's here in the U.S. or just type in weightlifting belt on Google and get what you need. You need to get something, specific for what our goals are in kettlebell sport. And then it's to support your rack position while you're in pausing between reps. Whether you're coming in from a clean or dropping from overhead, whether it's long cycle, half snatch, jerk. It's not required to compete, but it does, in my opinion, make a big difference. And so a quality belt made for your frame will definitely enhance your training experience, in my opinion. Now, my daughter will argue with that. She will not want to wear a belt. They do take a little bit of getting used to. I do have some scarring from where my elbows rest on my torso. Just my body getting used to how the skin will, a long set like 10 minutes will definitely create some discomfort. And as you get used to that, your skin does get tougher, but it is uncomfortable, in my opinion, as well. Just some things to kind of think about with a belt. What else can I add, Coach?
So, no, actually, you said it all. So, as you said, belts for kettlebell sport. Let's start with the obvious. It is not a powerlifting belt. Powerlifting belt is done for straight torso, not bend somewhere like in the lumbar section. It is usually sized up between your lower rib and your iliac crest and your ilium, your pelvic bones, and it is made for bracing. Kettlebell sport or kettlebell sport belts. I have a regular gym leather, not lycra, leather belt that they've used like back in the 70s, 60s, where Arnold were pumping. So it's like has a wider back and then narrowish to the sides and a buckle. And a regular gym belt, it's comfortable for me, and it does a pretty good job. Because I can put it loose. Unlike the lycra belts, these belts that are made with scotch and they're really hugging you for bracing. So what the thing is kettlebell, as Levi, as you said correctly, it is allowing the elbows to rack eventually on a belt, especially when you're tired and you're just like kettlebell really, really bending you. So when your elbows meeting the belt, even for a slight contact, it reduces so much stress, and it may be even a placebo effect because it's like not really supporting you, but the notion that you have something that you can place your elbow does an amazing job. The other thing that people may not know, in competitions, often you are allowed, when you're racking, you are allowed to lean on one side, really put your elbow, like stack it on a belt, lean, rest, lean on the other side, like really recover, and then continue. And then belt is priceless because you're really stacking your elbow on a belt. And they're not often they're not tight, okay, like you're not suffocating yourself with the belt. And again, it's usually loose, and it sits like a little bit, if you recall older Western movies, like the cowboy belt with the guns, it sits diagonally down. So usually the wider portion of the belt sits like on your kind of between on the lower vertebrae of the lumbar spine and your sacrum. And often it reminds people, similarly, like powerlifting reminds you to brace because you're losing tension with the belt. And when the set is long and you are tired and you completely begin to lose it, to drift, the bell reminds you not to overflex from the lumbar spine, okay, like in PPT motion, because lumbar spine stays neutral. We are using hip extension to drive hips forward, and then we're relaxing from the T-spine. So when the bell stuck diagonally, it kind of prevents you from curving, from playing with your pelvis and curving your lumbar spine, which is compromising the lower back health. And we're not lifting like this. Otherwise, all the absorption from the fixation, from the top position to the rack, will go directly through lumbar discs. And it is wrong. It goes through the hips, knees, feet, and into the ground. So putting the weight, the bell diagonally. What you're talking about, Zhernakov, what he did a similar move as pro kettlebells did with this carving, this section for the forearm. He made the sport kettlebell a little bit wider near the elbow area on the lower rib, so you can really put your elbows in. You have like sort of like a little cup. They're pretty thicker than usual gym belt, and it's really comfortable. And it is allowed, it is fine. So as Shay, as your daughter is correctly like stated, she doesn't like it, she doesn't use it. It's not obligatory, and there are people, especially people and women who's flexible, and women and men who often work with single belt and single heavy belts. You're really feeling the belt coming for your advantage. It really helps you there to rack, okay, slightly bending on one side and racking. All right, so very flexible women who can put the elbows on iliac crest can rest there pretty comfortably, and they do not use it. If you're not getting too wet or too sweaty and slippery on the elbows, because when the short gets wet, your elbow begin to slide off. And again, then you're meeting the belt that stops from elbows to sliding. So it saves you a huge amount of energy of readjusting the rack, which will kill your set. 1 minute of readjusting and you're done. Okay? Like because you have no strength to push the belt. So
Yeah,
this is as, yes.
I was just going to add, so the other common question then is, with the belts, is why do I choose to wear it with some sets and not other sets? And I was just going to add, so in my training, so if I'm going to compete, I'm going to, with two belts, I'm going to wear the belt. So in my training sets, if I'm pausing in rack, I'm going to wear the belt. If I'm doing sprint intervals or I'm not resting in rack, I won't wear it. And like you had mentioned, it's not tight. It's not something that I feel like I need to wear to support myself. But if it's not it's not uncomfortable, but it's not something that, like I said, I get enough pinching going on in my torso with my skin that if I'm not going to sit there and rack and need that extra support, then I'm not going to wear it. So especially with something like two bell half snatch, where I find it's much easier for me to find a comfortable rack position from the clean than it is when I'm coming down from overhead. And so on long cycle, um, I will pause after my clean. If I'm doing just jerks, just bumps, just half snatch, I just as soon, if I'm not going to pause and rack, I just soon not wear it. Same with single bell. If I'm re-cleaning or rehinging, so half snatch or long cycle, I won't wear it because I can get into a comfortable or rack position with one bell because I can adjust how my body weight shifts, elbow on my hip. But if I'm just doing jerks or push press, like in a pentathlon, then I will with a single bell as well. But that's just kind of, again, it's personal preference. I've done enough reps to know how I'm going to respond from a strategy standpoint, loading standpoint, pacing, duration, things like that. And so I want my sets, kettlebell sport is uncomfortable enough as is. And so I want my sets to be as advantageous as possible. So that's how I decide, me personally, how I'm going to use my belt and when I'm going to use my belt.
Exactly. And I'll continue and say that we often, and there is a tendency to delegate technique to external accessories. So when you're properly learning the powerlifting moves, you're not wearing a belt to understand how bracing works. Otherwise, and this is what I see in my gym, you have many kids lifting, like putting these belts they bought, they're lifting horribly. Okay, the technique is absolute worse, but since they've put the belt on, they're sure that the belt is doing all the work, so they just can squat or pull whatever. And it's not working like this. And I like, sometimes sometimes belt can break and whatever can happen. So lifting beltless is a must. Now it's phases, especially when you're beginner. Okay, you're using belt and no belt, long, light sets with lighter kettlebells. Okay, you must um, get used to this really, as you said, uncomfortable position where, yes, you're sliding off and you need to grind and you need to find, because this is what will force you to find the technique and to sharpen the technique to be very precise. Because if there is a belt, you can basically and that's it. And you don't care anymore because you know that there is a belt. And for the same reason, as you said, when you're doing speed work, belt is absolutely useless. And sometimes it even disturbs and kind of breaks your technique because it's not comfortable to hinging with it. And that's why in snatch, usually athletes don't use belt at all because they don't need to. There is absolutely no reason unless you're snatching, I don't know, like 40 or beyond, and you want this psychological, all right, especially like this micro bracing on the fixation of really heavy belt. Yeah, you might want the belt to be there for you. But other than this, belt is used in very particular manner, and often again it's programmed, and yeah, you're doing your sets with belt, without belt, and upon the competition, you're going with belt because if it's allowed, why not? So if we cover that one, shall we move to gloves?
Sure.
Yep. So you've heard it a lot. Oh, thank you for the inspiration. I'm going to do gloves too.
Yeah. Right. Now, gloves are, so if you see me training with gloves on, it's not to protect my hands. It's because you are making me, because you are tasked
An
with improving
evil
my,
Soviet. Yeah.
yes, you are tasked with improving my major weakness, and that would be my grip endurance, bicep, forearm conditioning, things like that. So the gloves are cotton. I spent less than $2 on them at the local hardware store. They are designed for gardening, so they are not a special accessory that kettlebell sport athletes are exclusive to. You can buy them anywhere. They're extremely cheap. Now, I would caution, like the comments I often get, oh, that's cool. What are you doing? How can I use them? Awesome. They are prescribed for me to use because I have a specific goal and improving a weakness. And in order for me to attain my goal, we are using them on certain sets, on certain days, for a desired effect. And sometimes it's with 2 bells, sometimes it's with 1 bell, sometimes it's multi-switch, sometimes it's single switch. And it really kind of depends on, where we are in our training cycle. And so the gloves don't protect the hands. They make it extremely difficult to hang on to the bells, cotton on steel. And so you can about imagine how, slippery the bell gets. And so you're training your grip. Now, again, that's just one method of grip training for your endurance. If you have decided that you also need to correct your grip endurance, but you're new to training with kettlebells or endurance training, I would caution you to use gloves simply because they make things extremely difficult very quickly. And if you're not sure on your technique, if your technique gets suspect when you get tired, gloves are only going to make things worse technique-wise. You're going to compromise. If you already have questionable technique, your questionable technique will get worse. And there's a good chance that that could lead to a very poor training effect, shorter sets when the goal is longer sets. It could lead to injury because you're compensating elsewhere. If you have a weak link in your grip and a weak link in your lower back, and all of a sudden your grip is failing and you're suddenly compromising your form to adjust for your weak grip, and now your back is injured. That's certainly something that you need to be aware of. And so just because you see someone else, me being the example in this conversation, but lots of people use them, just because you see someone else using them, it doesn't mean it's a great idea for you to use them given your situation. So again, do you know how to, Michael and I had a conversation this week as he prescribed a long glove set for me on my 3rd workout this week. And I told him that I would be unable to do it as he had written it. And he said to use a lighter load. I said, I would like to use a heavier load with a different exercise. And he said, you need to use a lighter load. And so I will be using a lighter load with how he prescribed it. But again, if you're just someone on the internet that is watching a video that I am sharing, you're not having that behind the scenes conversation. Are you adjusting loading correctly? Are you adjusting your switch correctly? Are you adjusting all these things? And so it's one of those things where, yes, it is a wonderful tool to enhance a weakness if you know what you're doing and how to adjust it accordingly. And so I would caution you as someone that is new to the sport or inexperienced, or just remember that my goals and your goals are different, likely different. And that doesn't mean my goals are better than your goals. It just means we are different, and to adjust accordingly. And just because it might look unique or fun or different, doesn't mean you're ready for them at your training in your training calendar or wherever you're at. So that's my piece for those.
Amazing. So you've answered it. Nothing for me to add except one little thing. As Levi said, gloves are highly specific for kettlebell sport. If you want your grip, do pinch grip, barbell plates, farmer carry. It will take your grip like far away. Do dead hangs, single hand dead hangs. If you want grip training, gloves are specifically for kettlebell sport. And like the best example I can give here is like like performance enhancement drugs. You do not shoot them by yourself. Even you can buy them by yourself. They're usually prescribed for very particular reason by very profound and smart people know to look at your blood chemistry and to really make this stuff. Okay, so yeah, you can get very easily injured, and basically we can summarize by get a coach. Like eventually, gloves, unlike any other set, are really prescribed in a particular phase of athlete preparation. They serve particular goal. Okay, it is not an ego bashing between me and Levi when he says that he wants to go heavier and I say no, go lighter, because we have a very specific goal to attain, and that's why the glue gloves are used for the same manner. So yeah, like you've answered it completely, like, and beautifully. So let's roll on to the next, which brings us actually, this is what we were talking behind the scenes, to the question that you and I asked a lot, like, how do I start? Like, from where do I start? Like, I'm new to kettlebell sport. I'm looking at it. It's interesting. Like, I'm coming from hard style background, which is amazing. And I personally welcome people from, regardless what your style are, is irrelevant, is just expanding your abilities and improving your abilities. So how, like, what would you say, like, how to start, like, kettlebell sport wise, or how to
Well,
set proper goals kettlebell sport wise?
sure. There's, you know, speaking from my own experience, coming from, only RKC and deciding that I wanted to compete. What drew me to kettlebell sport was, as I've stated, but this might be your first episode. So, what drew me was the benchmarks that are established performance-wise, having a standard, having judging versus just gym numbers. A competition performance, in my mind, separates gym performance 100% of the time. And so, someone that wanted to establish an online business, a performance business, really setting themselves out among their peers, like, why would you choose me who just works out in the gym versus someone that has done it? So those are kind of my reasons behind it. And so I originally started it, and I was just going to do kettlebell marathon on my own, and I was not going to hire anyone, let alone, obviously Coach Michael is my own personal coach as well. But I was just going to do it on my own. And, after training and competing that first time, I realized that, I didn't know as much as I thought I knew. And I've always compared, and this is not to diminish hardstyle as a training method when I say this, but hardstyle is bringing a knife to a gunfight. And a knife can be a very effective tool and a useful tool, but if I'm only going to use hardstyle methods and think that I'm going to prepare for a competition in kettlebell sport, I am going to lose every single time. And I had to swallow my ego and realize that I had a lot to learn. And so my recommendation is always, if you want to start training kettlebell sport or implementing sport methods into your training, you may never want to compete, and that's fine. Maybe you just want to learn to use bells more efficiently. Always, in my opinion, is to reach out to someone that knows what they're doing or has that experience. Because learning how to progress duration and pace is completely different than doing, 3 to 5 reps and then some fast and loose drills, and then 3 to 5 reps and some fast and loose drills. Again, I don't say that to discredit that method. If it's fantastic for the general populace, but again, we're not talking about the general populace when we're talking about kettlebell sport. We're talking about a niche and a group of or people that want to use methods to perform a specific task versus general fitness. And so that's kind of very long answer to a very simple question, which is hire a coach.
Absolutely. So first of all, technique-wise, and again, and like people, what you need to think is we tend to think as we are gods, as if we are gods and we are going to live forever. So we have all the time to DIY, to learn by myself, to get injured, and then to uh, relearn it and to tweak it and etc. But you need to let's look at it like this. With the help of a coach within, and it's not pitching coaching here, just understand the timeline. With coaching within 12 weeks, you can have a decent kettlebell technique, and you know what? Go find your own way, carve it, it's fine, play it. But at least the technique and understanding will be really, really good. If you're doing it on your own, how long it will take you? Half a year? If you're not injured, maybe longer. But here's the thing, your physiological age progressing as well. Okay, so you're losing twice here. You're losing time where you can be really working and taking stuff, like really exploring the sport, technique aside, and you're getting aged. And especially after 40, trying to do this stuff, you're not 20 anymore. You're not recovering your wrist, your elbows, your shoulders. And actually, this is where CrossFit fell, because like the sedentary, high-tech guys, computer guys, ran into the gym and begin to do Olympic weightlifting with shoulders that cannot handle a proper overhead squat and thoracic spine. And many of them got injured because like this curve did not exist. So just to sake, like saving, buy yourself a life. Like guys, really, buy yourself a life, buy yourself a time. Merely like to save it, and then so you can run forward. Because ironically, we learn every other thing. We hire life coaches, we buy, like these courses in every other field we want to progress, like marketing-wise, business-wise. The first thing we do, we hire a coach. And somehow in physical training, we have this stupid ego, absolutely of nowhere, like here I can do it by myself. Okay, again, if you're a guy. And second, let's deconstruct. So kettlebell sport is a highly specific endurance event. And sport aside, as Levi said, you may never compete, but you need to understand the rules of the game. You cannot bring hockey shoes to a soccer court, right? Like you can, like they must match. So in kettlebell sport, you must first of all and foremost stand the time. The classic kettlebell sport is 2-minute set. All right, this is what you do. Second, there are some tempo involved, so it's pacing. It's like in running. In running events, in cycling events, you have a cut-off time. So theoretically, you can walk, but you won't finish because they will close the finish line. So you must run. Same in kettlebell sport. You must work in a certain pace for it to be comfortable and healthy, because staying too much in rack, it's not good too. It's a static stress on a lumbar spine, whether we want it or not. So we need to understand the pacing, and I will elaborate on it in a second. So how to set a goal for kettlebell sport? All right, coaching aside, you want to do it DIY, God bless. First thing, you are going for the time. Forget about kettlebell sizes. So please be strong, all right? Be a real man, okay? Real man, wear pink. Be strong. Don't, like if you're a lighter man, don't be afraid or whatever grabbing pink bells, because it's, especially if you're coming out of hardstyle, it's always easy in kettlebell sport the first 2 minutes. Then suddenly hell begin and you are stuck. Okay, so don't judge the set by the first 2 minutes. And this is what my coach told me. I was very cocky at the first, said, the pace that you prescribed me, it's too slow. I can go higher. I said, yeah, all right. but everybody goes higher. Everybody goes quicker in the first 2 weeks of the program and in the first 2 minute sets of a program. And he was right. Because when the sets got 3-4 minutes times 3 times 4, suddenly you're like, oh, I think I've made on myself now because I cannot handle the space. I just need to drop. All right. So first, it is the time. Second is the pace. So let's take it like this. For jerk, the minimum pace, okay, I'm using the clock, is 12. Right? So there is no reason to take heavier bells. Grab a bell, even if it's two eights, two pinky ones, and do 10 minutes, 12 repetition per minute. And only if you can nail 120 repetitions in 10 minutes, then you may consider taking 12 or maybe 16. All right? But you owe the full experience to go back and then to understand how you derive your weights. All right? So it's the time and the weight. So the basic tempo for jerk is 12 minutes, basically one repetition every fifth second. For snatch, it usually starts from 16, okay, 15, 16, not lower. Again, if you cannot handle it, scale down the bell. And for long cycle, 6 a minute is fair enough. 6 a minute is a good tempo for the beginning. So this is how you do it. Okay. So this is your priority goals, okay? First of all, standing the time. Learn to stay the time psychologically and go beyond, all right? Do 11-minute set. Do these uncomfortable 13-minute sets because you need psychologically to get used to this time. Second is the tempo. And only lastly, you begin manipulation with kettlebell sizes, okay, to slowly bring it together. Okay, so you have snatch, jerk, and long cycle. The other tip for your goals in kettlebell sport, please don't look, like watch, but don't watch the YouTube videos of champions because you will learn nothing from it. You are looking at people who are doing it like Chinese gymnasts, right? Like it's fun to see, I admit, but I won't learn from them. They started at the age of 3. I am starting at the age of 43, so there is no correlation. Okay, like seek coaches, seek athletes, seek people who don't do it professionally and who started, like who are good. And again, you can find these people. It's not really hard, and they're doing it relatively. They've started late because they know how to take an elderly body, okay? And if you and I are not 8 or 10, we are elderly people, okay? How to take a 30-something, 40 years old body and slowly, okay, grow it, develop it injury-free into this framework of kettlebell sport. Because otherwise, you need to take recovery into consideration. You need to take the proper volume into consideration. Like it is programming, okay? And this is things that gained by experience and goes like for apprenticeship. I've learned it from my coach, and now I'm passing on to other my coachees, and then will learn from me. And so this is how these things go around. All right. So like as for your goals, and if you want to try kettlebell sport, this is what you do. You do first the time and pace, and lastly, you are doing you're taking kettlebell size.
And that's important. That's super important because if we're talking about the person coming from a hardstyle background, you know, we're talking about a lot of times, especially in America, because in America we always think, I always think ego driven and more weight is better, and that's just not, like you said. It's duration, it's pace, and then it's intensity last, and that's the opposite of what we do here. That's the opposite of what I was doing. My thought was if I'm going to snatch half snatch a 32 for a half an hour, I need to be able to half snatch a 36. Well, no, I will bury myself, and that leads to injury, it leads to frustration. And so yes, it's something that, you have to, I say it all the time, you have to check your ego. And it's something I still struggle with. And like I said, you and I conversed this week even with using lighter loads. And I'm glad you pointed that out. Um, I've got people that I work with as well that, yeah, we need to scale back. We need to work on technique and efficiency and patience versus, and again, it's not that you can't use GS methods as a way to train and use heavier loads or use shorter intervals, and that's totally fine if that's you just want to use these methods for exercise. But if you eventually want to compete or stand on a platform or train in the way to develop that kind of endurance and mindset, it's important that you follow the outline that you just laid down.
Yes, absolutely. And actually, your example is best because when we first met, I was uh, I was very excited, and I said like, "Oh, Levi is super strong. Like he does these feats of strength. He lifts these heavy kettlebells. Uh, we can probably start higher with kettlebell sport, like his training." And this is the direct correlation to the to the hardstyle guys. Okay, and eventually it proved yet again with you that regardless of the weight that you can lift for 1, 2, 3 repetitions, when you began to practice kettlebell sport, you felt that it's so different physiologically that like the strength that is in you just doesn't support the goals. So like we went back until we found this baseline. I believe it was around 20 kilo or 16s, 20s, something along these lines. And then we scaled up from there. Oh, and by the way, when you've mentioned if you want to do half an hour with 32, you need to work with 36. You're absolutely correct, but you need to go, okay, a long way forward to be able to train in this way. So this is that happens later on when you have
Correct.
enough experience and if you really want to compete. So this type of training principle, if you want to compete, if you really have this blood in your like eyes and in your like teeth and you want to really come and compete hard on, then you really take yourself out of it and you overreach, and then basically you go and you like take the 32 and it will feel like 16. But you need to be super experienced. You do not begin with it because it's an injury. And it's the same like kettlebell sport. It's very similar to the marathon. There are very stupid, unfortunately, I'm saying stupid people who kind of commit suicide on the marathon. They finish the marathon and then spending another year paying to physiotherapy just to cure all the micro tears, all the ligaments, on the stress fractures. And the question is like, why? Like how many times you've lost and how many marathons you could have enjoyed running, like really running, instead of now, being treated and slowly, not even starting from zero, but going back and starting anew while you are going and getting older and none of your connective tissues are the same as they were. So, like, Jesus, people, okay, wake up, invest half a year, all right, 6 months in a proper technique, learn, experience, and then you are like, I can always promise an almost injury-free life of events, memories, meeting people, expanding your physiological abilities and doing everything like by saving time and buying yourself time and actually like rolling back into the youth instead of just beating your body because every injury wounds last one kills and none of us have many injuries left. So it's better to prevent them, especially if you're not 16, because if you're 16, like, screw it. Okay, I can afford myself to mess up. When you're 46, you can't, because there are work, there are kids, there are like many stuff that you need to enjoy. And the stupidest thing to do is to save a like peanuts of money, but eventually losing like whatever. But again, this is philosophy, and I believe we've answered the question about the goal setting, and we can call it a wrap for today.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. So we are continuing. Join us next week, and we'll think about something smart to talk about, which we have. And again, people, please, if you have questions, throw them at us, because we will be more than glad to address and discuss and talk about the things, how to fuse, how to manage, how to manipulate, how to train, because this is why are we here, and do it in the more essentialist manner as possible. So thank you, Levi, for joining us today. Thank you, good people, for being with us, listening on Spotify, watching on YouTube. We love you guys. Stay in touch. We are on the social media, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Goodbye.